Welcome, welcome, welcome to the David Carmena Show. And I am still in the office. That's right. We're still in the office. Welcome. Today is, we got some breaking news. We have some breaking news today. The, the good news is that the Republicans and the Democrats are starting to talk to each other. I guess they're starting to get it. We only have a few days before we hit that X date. Now, the X date is the drop dead date. This is the date where potentially we can go into default. We only have a few days before that. So the breaking news, two things on two fronts. We have Janet Yellen came out and said that the new drop dead date before we go into default is January 5th, 10 days from now, January 5th. And the second, more important news, I guess, is that the Republicans and the Democrats are at the table. Maybe they're taking this thing seriously now that we have a true drop dead date. And they're starting to get together and decide what types of cuts, if any, what type of cuts we're going to be making. So I'm going to outline both parties' current position. And we're going to go through and talk about each party in their current, June 5th. I did say thank you, Christopher. I may have said January. It's June 5th, 10 days from now. Thank you, Christopher. And in line with that, I want to salute my number one contributor, number one supporter, Christopher Williams. Thank you so much. And thank you for the super chat, the $1.99 super chat. Thank you. I am so appreciative. You come in every night. You're the first one in, and you always bring gifts. Thank you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you. Now, as we said, Chris said that I may have misspoke. I want to make sure we're clear. It's 10 days from now. It is June 5th, not January 5th. I want to make sure we have that. January 5th, guys, these guys probably would, no telling what these guys would be doing. They'd probably be really taking all kinds of vacations and in campaign mode, and not really taking this debt ceiling seriously. Now, where are they? What positions do we currently have? There have been some movement in both the Republican side and the Democrat side. Now, I want to go back. To when we first got here. The Democrats were saying, give me a clean bill. Clean bill. I want to raise the debt ceiling, no strings attached. The Republicans their position was, okay, we passed a debt ceiling bill out of the House. It was strictly along party lines, but we did pass something, and we are the only branch that has a bill that's been passed that, could potentially go to the Senate and be voted on into law. Now, of course, that bill that they passed had a lot of things in there that was basically a non-starter from the Democratic side of the aisle. But they can say that, hey, listen, we have something that we can have a framework to start working on. That's important to note, because if this ever goes to default, man, you're talking about the political, knife fight. Everybody is going to be pointing to the other side. It's going to be crazy. So where are they now? As of the most recent publicly reported positions, we have a couple of things that the Republicans have solidified. Now, I want you guys to, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And if there are any positions that we want to expand upon, then we can definitely do that the next time around that we talk about this, because we it's heating up. It's heating up, and if we do default, it's not good. The Republicans, only thing that they really said was off the table is that they're not going to do anything to the military. They're not going to, there'd be no cuts to the military. The military is safe. Everything else is on the table. Their big position is that they want to make cuts to discretionary spending programs. Now, those programs are mainly the more popular programs on the Democratic side. So we're looking at, depending on how you view it. Now, they did say that, Social Security is off the table, Medicare. And then there's been some reports that maybe, it's kind of fuzzy. But for sure, you have other discretionary spending cuts that are on the table. Social cuts to social programs. We're talking about all of the safety net, a lot of the safety net cuts that they want to trim back and either reduce, or they're going to trim back and have some type of requirements attached to it. And that's we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show, but there's a work requirement that is attached to that. So a lot of the popular programs that a lot of people use as a safety net, we're talking about the food subsidy program. We're talking about the housing programs. We're talking about educational programs. We're talking about those programs that a lot of the at-risk people are need to get off of be marginalized areas to maybe go and have a food at the kitchen table. We're talking about having housing subsidies. We're programs that allow people to go to school. Those are programs are what some of the programs that the Republicans are looking to either put some type of cut to, or causing or want to have a stipulation that, like with the work program, where they're saying that you have to, make sure that you are actively looking for a job to get this particular subsidy. I don't know. Is that unreasonable? Is that position really unreasonable? We're going to dig a little bit deeper into that. And then lastly, a couple more things is that they want to cap the spending level to 2022 with 1% increases for the next couple of months, a couple of years. So they are looking at an overall cap so that we will not go any higher than more than 1% over the next 3 years from the 2022 level. Okay? And then lastly, what that means is, and this is kind of the Democrats saying this, is that there's going to be a 20% cut across the board for all other programs. Because remember, military is off the table. Social Security is off the table. So they got to get those cuts somewhere. So they're saying that the Democrats are saying that, well, what that means, guys, to reach these goals is we have to have a 20% cut on all other programs. They got to get to those goals somehow. What about the Democrats? Democrat position is that, well, if we default, you're looking at the government will basically default on the principals and interests of his loans. We're going to talk about what type of debts we're looking at. We're going to cover the bills. We're going to cover a lot of things that would be actually not being able to pay for. We won't be able to pay for a lot of these things. We won't be able to pay the basic necessities that most military, most Social Security, most people, if you're on a fixed income and we default, you're in trouble. Now, a lot of people are going to come in and say, well, the government has a lot of money. The government has a lot of money. And, this is all made up. No, look, we're going to keep it real. We're going to keep it real here. We're going to have a global financial market disruption. That means that our treasury bonds, which are considered the safest investment in the world, we're going to default on that. And as I'm going to show you guys, those bonds are our base level. Everything else is based. A lot of the other bonds, a lot of the other mortgages, a lot of the other interest rates that you get are based on those bonds. Economic recession. Stock market is going to go to hell. Inflation rate is going to go to hell. If you're looking to borrow, if you're looking to expand your business, if you're looking to purchase a new house, it's going to cost you so much more money if you're even able to get a loan. If you even get a loan, because the credit worthiness of the United States will be so damaged that it's going to cost us money to borrow money. Our cost of money is for the United States, I'm the United States, is going to be, our cost of money is going to go up because we're going to lose our AAA bonding to AA, or we're going to be more of a risk. Never happened in our year. We've always paid our debt. We've never been a country that did not pay their debt. And lastly, and this is what's really starting to take root, is the political game. You have one party that's saying, well, default, and blame it on the other side. You have the other party saying, well, it wasn't our fault, but it's the other party that wasn't negotiating in good faith. In the meantime, it has been reported that anywhere between, depending on how you look at it and how long the default takes, it could be, if we default and then we resolve it quickly, we're looking at 1 million jobs. 1 million jobs will be lost or affected. If it drags on, it can go all the way up to 10 million. And guess what? We're in a recession. Let's do this. Let's talk about the Do Better podcast with Theo Coop. Thank you, brother. He is a part of the mastermind that is with the lead attorney. And thank you for the $3 super sticker. Excellent content creator. He talks a lot about the manosphere. Really, it's a variety of stuff. Hot topics, manospheres. He's in there every day streaming. He has an excellent show, excellent content creator. The Do Better podcast with Theo Coop. Thank you, Theo, for your super sticker. I appreciate you, brother. Brian, salute from Baltimore. Hey, what's the weather is like? Is it warm out there? Salute. Christopher. Welcome, Brian. Welcome all you guys. Now, from the chat, is it possible? Do we think that it's going to the U.S. will actually is going to default, or are they going to get together and, like they always do, at the very, 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 very last minute, do something to kick the can further down the road, or actually try to tackle the problem? Brian said it's nice today. All right. It was raining here in Florida, so you probably have better weather than I. Thank you for coming to the show. Thank you for coming to the show. Now back to the political ramifications. As I said, it always comes to this. They're going to start pointing fingers. They're going to say, it's not my fault. They're going to say every excuse in the book except for doing their job. They only have a couple of jobs, guys. And one of the main jobs that both parties have is making sure that we can pay our bills. They need to protect us. They need to provide opportunities. They need to pay our bills. The good faith and creditworthiness of the United States should not be compromised for somebody's political agenda. Brian said that they're going to kick the can down the street and around the corner. They're going to kick the can down the street and around the corner. They do that every year, seem like. Now, to be fair, President Trump, he raised the debt ceiling, 3 times in his presidency? But to be fair, it was to combat the pandemic. And he received a clean bill. But again, we had extraordinary circumstances. And so that's reasonable. A reasonable person could say, hey, listen, the United States is trying to recover, get past this pandemic. No one is working. So we need to do something to stimulate the economy. And we had a lot of these stimulus bills, several rounds of the stimulus packages go out, and we needed to raise the debt ceiling so we can pay for that program. We can see that. Christopher says, as a collective political would need to change. We need to change. We need to change. We cannot continue to have this type of situation happen every single year, no matter what. If we have a Democratic Congress, if we have a Republican Congress, if we have a Democratic president, if we have a Republican president. Rodney, thank you, brother. Thank you for the $9.99. Rodney Wood II. No comment, no question, just showing some love for the game, as the league would say. Thank you for dropping in. I want to know what you think about this debt ceiling. Question on the floor is that, are we going to do something about it? Or are we going to kick the can down the road? Rodney said, salute. Salute to the chat. Salute to everybody. Thank you, Rodney. Rodney Woods II. I appreciate you. Now, will we kick the can down the road? One person said that we should, and this was a Republican saying that what we should do is kick the can down the road. The Democrats are wanting a 2-year to get past the election so that we don't politicize this debt ceiling. The Republicans said if we do kick the can down the road, if we don't get everything that we want, what we're going to do is that we're going to just kick it down to 2024 and make that part of the campaign for the Republican and the Republican candidate, which will most likely be Trump. Let's face it. He's leading in the polls. And Biden. And Biden is basically running unopposed. I've seen some polls where there's been some smaller names that are going up against Biden. And the last poll I looked at, Real Clear Politics, who has a kind of a list of all the polls and the for president, for House, the key candidates, and for the challenger on the Republican side. And Biden is leading 50+%. So he should be the Democratic candidate. Now, on the Republican side, there's a lot of candidates there, but Trump still has a healthy 30% or so lead. In some polls, it's a little bit more. In some polls, a little bit less. Now, my shop is in Florida, so DeSantis is making the run. And we're going to see how that turned out. But it's probably going to be between those two as who's going to be representing the Republican side. So you're looking at Trump, you're looking at Biden as a rematch, or Biden and another candidate from the Republican side to go for, that will be vying for the next president, to be the next president of the United States in 2024. The question is, though, should we allow this type of situation to be part of that campaign? Or should the good faith and credit of the United States be above that? No matter what party is in power, we should not go down there. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. This should be apolitical, because both parties have the responsibility to pay the bills. Both parties have the responsibility to protect us. And both parties have the responsibility to make sure that our people, the United States of America, Americans, are taken care of. So should we even have a situation where this is now, the can is kicked down the road? Because most of you guys think that it will be kicked down the road. Should the can be kicked down the road to where now we cannot pay our bills and we default, or we kick it down the road to where now it's a political football for next election cycle? Christopher says part of the campaign is have a lot of people engage in the election is to be bigger than Super Bowl, and they're going to push it until they're going to push the can down the road to 2024. Brian said it shouldn't be that way. It should not be that way. It shouldn't. There's a lot of things that us, the Black and brown community, the at-risk community, the people who want to navigate through and live and get part of the American dream, us. We're going to be the ones that's going to be affected, not them. But first, we need to educate ourselves so we know what's coming down the road. We know each other's position because, guys, they're going to try to get the okie doke for you. There, I can see it. I can see it now. You guys are saying it in the chat, and I really believe that that's ultimately what's going to happen. We have 10 days. We have 10 days to come up with a solution to avoid default. And I bet you that in those 10 days, they're going to say that, oh, well, we can't come to an agreement, but what we can do is kick the can down the road to 2024. That's what I see is happening. And this is what's going to happen to us if it happens. I'm going to add a pretty good little overview of where each positions are. I'm going to talk about each positions that the Republicans and the Democrat has, and we're going to go into why, if we default, everybody is going to feel it. Republicans, Democrats, and everybody in between. Let's roll the tape.
Leaders are still debating raising the debt ceiling as the deadline to default gets closer. But they do agree on one thing.
Defaulting on our debt is not an option.
Not an option. It will have catastrophic consequences.
Now, I love this brother. That is the House Minority Leader, Representative Jeffries. I love him because when he talks, he's like, check out his hand motion. He's one of those people that, you know, his hands is all over the place. He emphasized every point with his hands. I love him. I love him. No shade to him. That's just his mode of speech. Is being very, very effective. But check out his hands positions when he speaks. It is what it is. It is what it is. Let's continue on.
They're not exaggerating. The U.S. Treasury uses tax revenue and debt to pay the country's bills, like funding government programs, Social Security, and paying interest on existing debt. If it runs out of money and isn't able to pay these investors back, that's default. And that's what will happen if Congress doesn't raise the debt ceiling to allow the Treasury to take on more debt.
Which would cause massive upheaval in financial markets, stock prices falling, interest rates rising, probably the dollar falling too. And that could affect a wide range of your own financial life. In a worst case scenario, it could cause a whole new recession.
It's because U.S. debt has become the core of the economy, from Wall Street to banks to interest rates.
U.S. Treasury borrowing is the center of gravity for almost all finance on the globe.
Here's why, how it works, and what a default would mean for you. This is what the U.S. debt is made out of: bonds. Well, technically, they could also be a bill or a note, but for our purposes, we're going to call them all bonds. And they're not just how the federal government takes out debt. Bonds can be given out by cities, banks, corporations, because a bond is basically an IOU. An investor buys, say, a $1,000 bond. The government or business pays them interest on it in installments. And at the end of the term, they're $1,000 back. And that amount of interest is based on how risky that bond seems to investors. Companies that have a long history of paying their debts, say Microsoft, pay a lower interest to bondholders. The bank Credit Suisse paid nearly 10% on some riskier bonds before those were wiped out when the collapsing bank was taken over. The higher the risk, the higher the reward.
Investors are always calculating, what's the extra return I want for the extra risk I'm taking? A lot of investors will ask, what is the return I would get if there was no risk at all? And their answer to that question has always been to look at the U.S. Treasury bond. The U.S. Treasury is seen as the safest and soundest borrower on planet Earth.
Which is why it's considered a benchmark for all investments.
A benchmark is really the base off of which a lot of other borrowing is done. A lender will want to have something larger than that benchmark. That's considered to be the lowest possible rate. If the U.S. Treasury is issuing at 4%, then corporate bonds or mortgage bonds or other governments might issue at 5% or 6%.
You can see that benchmark Treasury rate here in this chart. Now here's the 30-year mortgage rate. Here's a grouping of AAA rated, considered the safest corporate bonds. They go
All right, so let's talk about that, because this is where I'm emphasizing that if we default and that benchmark, our bonds go up, every other thing that we are looking at, which is, yeah, we may not be investing in treasury bonds, but what we are investing in is a mortgage rate. Most people wants to get a house. Most people wants to get credit to grow their business. Well, if our benchmark goes up, look at what it was in. Let me go span that. Can you guys see that? Let me remove myself. Okay, in the 80s, we're looking at that's 10%, and then went all the way up to almost 14%. And then it's been steadily growing down. But when it was 14% in we're looking at right around 83-ish or so, the mortgage rate was over that amount, over 14, almost 15%. And as our T-bills have gone down, you can see that all of the other rates are following. So if our benchmark goes up, then now we can get, it's quite possible that we can get up here and our mortgage rates can be up in here 10% in the 90s. Some people says that even if we go back to the 2000s, we're looking at 8%. What is that? Somewhere around 8%? Now, could you imagine? People are not buying homes now, can barely afford homes now, and the interest rate is around 5%, 6%. What about the interest rate for us is now 8, 9, 10%? Everybody's going to be affected by this. It's not just going to be, what they're trying to tell you, which is, well, it's not going to be that big of a deal. No, guys.
Go up and down in
Everyone.
relation to the U.S.
Let's
debt,
get back to it.
which is always the lowest, the benchmark.
It's kind of like the sun. Everything revolves around that benchmark, that U.S. Treasury rate.
It's more than just the rate of the bond. It's the bonds themselves that are so central. Wall Street firms, banks, companies, a lot of financial institutions keep money in U.S. Treasury bonds.
It's just always expected that the U.S. Treasury is going to make good on its debt.
Bonds could be affected two ways by this debt ceiling debate. A contentious fight could make investors worry they may not get their money back on time, and as a result, they would most likely demand a higher interest rate for their risk. The same could happen if the big three credit rating firms have the same fear and downgrade the U.S. AAA credit rating. It's happened before. Standard & Poor's did that in 2011, citing the fight around the debt ceiling. But they were the only ones, and it didn't have much of an effect back then. The worst case scenario is if Congress doesn't raise the debt ceiling, and the U.S. is unable to pay investors on time and actually defaults. Then U.S. bonds, the benchmark, would be proven unsafe investments. If the value of the bonds go down, these financial portfolios would too. Investors would demand higher interest rates for their higher risk, and that would raise interest rates for everyone.
It's kind of like being hit by a meteor. When you don't have confidence that the benchmark itself is going to be paid off, it creates uncertainty in financial markets. When there's financial chaos, very often companies lay people off. So everybody has a stake in this.
An analysis by Moody's looked at the different scenarios. If the default is brief and the Treasury prioritizes paying investors, but not, say, senior Social Security, the already fragile economy would have a mild recession with close to 1 million jobs lost. If the default goes on for weeks and investors aren't paid, the economic downturn would be comparable to 2008, costing more than 7 million jobs and wiping out $10 trillion in household wealth.
$7 million jobs lost. 10 trillion loss in value. I think that that's kind of conservative. If you think about it, just the Fed raising the bank rate 5% caused several banks to default. Chase Bank has to spend $11 billion to buy out First Republic. SVB went into receivership, and we didn't even default there. So I think that the 7 million jobs lost is kind of on the low side if this is prolonged. But then also, I think that the people that's going to be affected the most is us, the business class, the middle class, or the people that are trying to get more of the American dream.
To avoid both scenarios, the House, Senate, and White House must agree to raise the debt ceiling before the June 1st deadline. Many experts call it
A game of chicken.
but a game where we all lose if they don't raise it before the clock runs out.
That's what's at stake. That is what is at stake. Is that we only have 10 days left, and the clock is running. The clock is running out. Now, I present to you that the good news, we want to end this on the good news with some good news, is that both sides are at the negotiating table. Now, it's true that the Republicans, the House went on vacation for the Memorial Day, but then their negotiators are still in DC at the White House. I mean, in DC, and the president is going to on vacation, but then he's still negotiating. So basically, they're still at the table. They're still at the table, and they're trying to hammer this stuff out. But as you guys have said, and I agree, it's every year. It seemed to be the same thing, and we seem to get closer and closer and closer to default. Christopher says that should they take vacation at this critical time? Let me put it this way. You have a job, and if your job is facing bankruptcy, if your job is facing something where half of your employees, well, all of your employees is going to be affected, but half of them will not have a job the next day or a series of time, would you go on vacation? I think that everybody, to take this seriously, everyone should be, the House should have made everyone stay in DC or around the area so that if they need to be called in for a vote, they can get in over the weekend. Because if they come to an agreement, they're only going to have, it takes a while for to go through both Congresses, the House and the Senate, and then they come up with they do the sausage making, and they come up with a bill that the president can sign. That's even with everyone on board. With everyone on board, it's going to take almost the full 10. If they were to decide right now that, okay, we're going to do a clean debt ceiling, it would still take quite a while for that bill to be signed into law. Now, a lot of people are thinking that, well, maybe Secretary Yellen is that the 5th of June is not really the drop dead date. Maybe we have a little, maybe it's fudgeable. Maybe there's a little bit more time there. There's some money out there that she could use toward paying these bills. It's been reported that some of the stimulus money is out there. Some of the COVID, they call it the COVID money. Some of the COVID money is out there that she can pull it back and use that. It's been also reported that the Treasury could just write do a coin that's worth $1 trillion. Just $1 trillion coin, and then we won't have this problem. But hold up. My man Thane. Hey, brother, I haven't seen you in a while. Thank you. Thane, I'm fairly new to YouTube. I have a background in real estate and entrepreneurship. I've been building businesses. We just finished a project I'm going to make some money off of. Hopefully we'll have this project sold. I understand how access to capital and how it is so important that you have working capital to grow. That is the lifeblood of every company. I understand how people want to be part of the American dream. Like I said, I'm building a beautiful house right here. Look it up online. It's a nice little bungalow just on the west side of Tampa. Is in West Tampa, and it's not that far from downtown. My office is downtown. It's not that far. You can actually live in that beautiful little bungalow. The address, guys, if you want to look it up, is 1922 West Chestnut Street, Tampa, Florida. And you can look that place up, and it'll be beautiful with somebody. I can see the mom and pop. I can see that starter family with one kid. It's not that big of a place. But it's a nice little starter family with one kid. That's my lane. I understand that. I can do projects like that and multifamilies all the time thing. And I wanted to share this, my experience, my ability to kind of see through these tea leaves and understand how that affected business community. I want to share that with you guys. So being new to these YouTube streets, and having brothers, solid brothers like you come in and support me with this generous $100 super chat. It really means a lot, because while I am a 30-year, 20+ year real estate professional, 30 years in business, seen it and done that, I am still new to these YouTube streets, and the support that you're giving me helps validate everything that I do. And I want to thank you. Salute. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for being the stream sponsor for tonight. I appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thane says, sup? David Carmena Show. Share this knowledge. We are here for it. Yep. Thank you. Came in at the last minute. You landed last minute. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for coming in. And I've been talking about this debt and ceiling, the raising the debt limit and not defaulting for the last couple of shows. And I tell you, if we default, we have so many things that is going to go wrong. We are going to have a serious recession. We're going to have so many people that are in the Black and brown community, so many people that are at risk. They're going to be directly affected by us defaulting and kicking the can down the road, which a lot of us think is going to happen. A lot of us thinks that what's going to happen, guys, is that they're going to kick the can so that now it's a political football for the 2024 election cycle. Well, that takes care of the immediate need, but now, guess what? Now we're going to be right back here next year, but it's going to be even more of a partisanship fight, even more of a fight between actually, you know what? Maybe it's good that we do kick it down the road because they have some fundamental differences. They have fundamental differences about what we should be using this money for. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what is the main difference. What is the sticking point between the Republicans and the Democrats? Because the Republicans are going to come on and they're going to say, well, we want to be fiscally responsible. We want to, they use the analogy of if you give your kid a credit card, let me show you guys something. Let me cover this up. American Express Platinum card. No limit. No limit. Well, it has a limit, guys. Yeah, I got to pay that bad boy back. It got a limit. It got a limit. But you know what I mean. What they're saying is that should we, where's my, here it is. I have one of these too, one of the gold ones. Should we give a card would you give a credit card to your kid with no limit or no constraints on what you can spend or where you should be? That's their position. Their position is that the Democrats are spend crazy. They're shop crazy. They are the party of fiscal responsibility. That's the Republican position. The Democrat position is that, hey, listen, we have social programs that we want to pay for. Yeah, we're raising the taxes, which is how we get money into the government. We're raising the taxes, but those taxes are going to be used for good. Those taxes are going to be used for infrastructure program, for clean jobs, for social programs. We're going to make sure that Social Security is fully funded. We're going to make sure that the Medicare, Medicaid. We're going to make sure that that the Section 8 is funded. We're going to make sure that people eat with the WIC programs. So yeah, we're raising money, but we're only going to raise it to the wealthy, the rich. And we're going to use that money for these worthwhile programs. And the Democrats are saying, well, what about these programs that you guys are doing on that side? You say that you're the party of fiscal responsibility, but you're giving these corporations the ability to avoid paying their fair share of taxes. You're giving all of these benefits to the other party. So what about that? You're giving corporate welfare. Those are the two positions, the main positions. That's why the Republicans are saying that we want to cap your spending to 1% from 2022 spending levels. We're going to cap it 1% for the next couple of years. Should that be debated? The Republicans are saying, hey, listen, okay, well, you're giving out these programs to these social programs. Should there be a stipulation to these programs that for you to be on these welfare programs or these Section 8 programs or these other benefits, that you should be actively seeking work. That you can't just be at home collecting a check. That's what the Republicans are saying. I'm okay with giving you these subsidies, but we want to make sure that if you're an able-bodied person, you should be able to go to at least look for a job. And not take advantage of these programs that you're getting to stay at home and not do anything. That is the position of these two sides. And my question to you, the chat, is is it possible that maybe kicking the can down the road will finally flush this stuff out? Will finally force us to actually deal with the problem. Let me know what you think. If we need to deal with the problem, say yes. I mean, kicking the can down the road so we can. Let's assume that they're going to have a good faith effort to try to deal with the problem. Put yes in there. But if we should deal with the problem now and have a 2 years raise the ceiling and not be able to make sure that it's at a sufficient level to where we don't have to address this until after the election cycle in 2025, put in there no. Because I can see kind of both sides to this. Thane says that U.S. spending is out of control with little stopgaps to recoup and reduce the debt. Are we out of control? Republicans are saying that. The Republicans are saying, guess what, guys? You have a American Express Black card, and you burning through that bad boy. You are out of control, Democrats, and we want to put limits on there. Is that a fair position? Would you run your business? Let's do this another way. I run the business. We have a line item on, or we have a project that we're going to go into. We have another project that we're developing, a small little 12-unit community. And we have a top line. We went to the bank and said that we need X amount of money. We have a top line goal of we're going to build it for this amount. Okay, we're going to build it for this amount. And then we're going to sell it for this amount. And then the delta, we're going to use that money to pay back what you're lending us with interest. We're going to pay you back, and then we're going to use the profit from that. And everything is in that budget. If we go above the budget, we're in trouble. We're actually cutting into our profit. If we go below the budget, that's cool because we're under the budget. Can we look at the debt ceiling like that? Is it okay, like Thane said, to have reasonable stopgap spending restraints on the budget and should we look into reducing the budget? Is that is that unfair? Why are we even? Shouldn't that be something that we as the United States want to do? Chris will say, yeah, that seemed reasonable. Most business people will say, well, that kind of seemed reasonable. You can't just spend with no controls in place. But who's it going to hurt, guys? Remember, that debt ceiling is a component of bringing in income from taxes, and other sources of income. But mainly, let's face it, it's taxes. And the Democrat Party is okay. You want spending controls? I got you. Let's have these spending controls. But also, let's make sure everybody pay their fair share in taxes. What about these loopholes for the corporations? What about those? You want us to make sure that we're spending at a certain level, yet you're giving these corporations corporate welfare. So you're and I'm making a position of the Republicans. I'm advocating for the Republicans because they have a position. I'm sorry, the Democrats, because the Republicans have stated their position that we are the party of fiscal responsibility, and all we want to do is have sensible spending cuts so we don't go over our debt limit. The Democrats will say, okay, well, make sure that everybody pay their fair share. If I'm going to agree to have this hard ceiling, and this ceiling is contingent upon us bringing in a certain amount of debt, a certain amount of income, so we don't hit the debt ceiling, well, make sure the large corporations pay their share. Make sure that the wealthy pay their fair share. Is that reasonable? Thane says U.S. spending cannot be fixed without rethinking tax law equitably and seriously oversight of government. I have something, the waste, looking at, okay, so I have something better than that. What about a flat tax? I want to have a show on, everybody says that taxes is a problem. Everybody says that taxes is a problem. What about flat tax? What about that consumption tax? Let me put something out to you guys. If there's a problem with people not paying their fair share in taxes, and we need to have taxes, why don't we just have a flat tax, a consumption tax? You buy something, you pay a tax, you're done. The only exception is that if you fall under the poverty level somewhere, let's say you're, I don't know, some percentage under the poverty level, that you get some money back, you get a subsidy back. Other than that, from the poverty level up, you pay a consumption, you pay a flat tax. If you buy a super yacht, you pay the taxes on it, you're done. If you buy a loaf of bread, you pay the taxes on it, you're done. If you buy a house, you pay your taxes, you're done. No one will be able to skirt that tax. What do you, in the chat, what do you guys think about the flat tax? Is that fair? Is that a fair option? Thane says that, David, you are on point. Taxation streamlining matters. You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But everybody, I think, who was that? Was it Cruz? There was one or two in the last election cycle. There was one or two Republican candidates were a proponent of the flat tax. I want to say it was Ted Cruz. Hold on. Let me see if I can look it up. Is the flat tax an answer? We wouldn't have to worry about all of this wrangling. We can probably reduce the government because the IRS would be streamlined, scaled down, because you wouldn't have to have as much tax cheats because there's basically no tax. The only people that fall below that would be whatever level that we set as the poverty level. Those people that can that can prove that they are below that level will go there. Here's things: flat tax is being talked about and seems more equitable, but will politics, the political and the elite in the country. I want to make sure that the profiteers is well, I guess that's not a trigger word for YouTube. In the country, snatch laws for Thing. Will it be able to skirt the law? Probably. But it's hard to say that a multimillionaire can justify being 20%, 30%, 40% under the poverty level. So it would be harder for them to skirt the law, because if you're able to buy a super yacht and so you purchase a super yacht, you purchased let's say something that's a little bit more. You purchased a Lamborghini, $300,000 car, $400,000 car, and you are now saying that, let's say the poverty level is $12,000. You're saying that you are making under that $12,000. That'd be kind of difficult to prove. So we're only going to have the IRS will only process people who are making a claim. Let's say they have to make a claim every year or every other year that they are under that poverty. They're under the poverty level, and therefore they get money back from that. So if they're saying that they make $12,000, and let's say, for instance, $12,000, let's say that it has a 10%, we have a 10% consumption tax, flat tax, and they're due to get $1,200 back. What their portion of that consumption tax would be. It'll be hard to get around that. It'll be hard to prove that, that in a certain year you can buy a $300,000 car, but then claim that you're making $12,000. Maybe somebody super smart, good, but I think that the majority of people will have a hard time doing that. So I don't know. I don't know why the flat tax is not an option, guys. I don't. I don't know why we can't, come up with a solution to this. And, get her done. Because every year we have the same problem. And this year, it may blow up in our face. Because I think that, like Icarus, we're going to fly too close to the sun. We have 10 days left. Yellen already said that, hey, listen, guys, our X date is on the 5th. And yeah, maybe she has some of that, let's face it, she probably has some of that money left. Christopher, we said last show that, she has what, 60, was it 60 billion? 60 billion, which is not a lot of money, because she's spending roughly 100. I think it was reported that the first week of June, she is going to spend like $120 billion. And then the second week, she doesn't have it. And so that's how she was able to formulate the X date for June 5th. But let's say she has 100 billion and she don't have the full 120. Maybe she can pull back, rake back some of that money, claw back some of that money in stimulus package. Maybe she can claw back some of that to make another bill, to extend another week or so. But let's face it, at some point, we're going to run out of money. Bottom line, some point, we're going to run out of money. So we're going to have two options, guys. Two options. Kick the can down the road, make it a political football, which maybe it might be. Maybe we need to really put this front and center so that we can finally deal with it. Or we do some type of concession, and then because the White House wants us to have a solution that would get us past 2025. So we don't make this a political football. But I don't know who would be what party would win that political football. Because it's fair, just like Thane said, it is fair to have a reasonable spending policy. That's fair. We shouldn't be giving. We shouldn't be giving them the American Express black card. They shouldn't have a blank check. But then on the Democrat side, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you're going to cut programs for the most needed group segment, well, you need to cut programs for these companies and make sure that everybody pay their fair share. Maybe that needs to be front and center. Or maybe we're just going to kick it down the road another 2 years to where it's 2025 now, and either the Republican candidate has to deal with it or the Democratic candidate has to deal with it. This is a problem that's been going on. The debt ceiling has been raised over 100 times. A lot of times it's been for legit reasons. It was for wars or pandemics or major social programs, build infrastructure. I can understand that. But a lot of times it was for something else. So either way, we have to deal with it. Finally, we have to decide whether we want to take the bull down by the horns, put it right in front of it. One reason why it would be good to make this to kick the can down the road to 2024 is, guess what? Now both parties have to decide, have to make it part of their platform, and the American people have to decide which way they want to go by selecting that particular party to be the president of the United States and to be in the Congress. So if it's a landslide for the Republicans, guess what? That's what they want. If it's a landslide for the Democrats, then that's what the United States wants. Finally, we have a legit agenda to talk about. Or we take it off the table and make sure that the debt, the good faith and credit of the United States is apolitical, that no party should encroach upon our ability to pay our bills. Guys, we have 10 days left. And in 10 days, we're going to decide which way we want to go. As always, salute and stay grinding. Talk to you guys Monday.